How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Gimel, Daf 13 of Masechta Nazir, friends. Friends, the Maaseh, I made a shtickle cup of tea over here. Finally, winter came to Eretz Yisrael. It's a good thing, you know. In winter, it's good to be winter, you know. So I made a cup of tea. I have a shtickle sore throat. It might also be related to the fact that I haven't been sleeping much. Alright, knock upon him. Alright, let's do it. So, today we're talking about people who say that they're not going to cut their hair or drink wine or become Tamei Meis. Nazir people. But listen to this, friends. Mishnah, Yud Beis Amud Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom. Harini Nazir l'chshiyili ben. You hear that? Fellow says that when he'll have a son, he's going to be a Nazir. V'nolad ben, and sure enough, a big simcha in the family. He has a son. Harei a Nazir. Well, okay, he's going to now be a Nazir. Nolad lo bas tumtum bandroginos. Now, if it wasn't a son, if they had a daughter or a tumtum or an androginos, Eino Nazir. Well, then he's not a Nazir. The condition was if he has a son. If he doesn't have a son, he's not a Nazir. Im Omar, Kshiyeli Volod, if he says it'll be a Nazir if he has offspring, well then Afilu Nolad lo bas tumtum androginos. Then it applies if he has a boy, a girl, tumtum androginos. Harei ze Nazir. Ipila Ishto. Oh, what if his wife had a miscarriage and they didn't end up having a child? So then it's a suffix if the fetus, if it's considered like it was a child that he would have to be a Nazir for or not. So the Tanakame, who we're going to see in the Gemara, is Rabbi Yehuda, but okay, the Tanakame says Eino Nazir, he's not a Nazir. Reb Shimon Omer, whereas Reb Shimon says Yomar, he should make a stipulation. Because remember, let's just go through it right now, right? As the Gemara is going to say that Tanakama is Reb Yehuda Dechri. Remember, we've seen this, we saw it in Masechta Nedarim, we saw it recently, I believe, in Masechta Nazir, that if a fellow says that he is going to be a Nazir if there's 100 core in a certain pile and the pile gets stolen, now we don't know is there 100 core in the pile or not because the pile is not there anymore. So Rabbi Yehuda says he's not a Nazir because he wouldn't. You can't make yourself a Nazir out of suffix. Therefore, he's not a Nazir, and therefore over here as well, by this, this woman who had a miscarriage. So it's a suffix if he would have to be a Nazir or not. And Rabbi Yehuda says that he would not be a Nazir out of suffix, whereas Rabbi Shimon says that he would have to. Right, out of suffix, he would have to take on the practices of a Nazir. So, Reb Shimon says, you know what he should do? Yoma, should say, look, imoy ben kayoma, if this fetus was considered a ben kayoma, a child, so then Harayani Nazir. Well, then I'm a Nazir. I said it. Right? If I have a child, I'll be a Nazir. So I'm a Nazir. Nazir chova. V'imla Harayani Nazir nedava. But if the child was not it was not considered a ben kayoma, so then I'm not the Nazir, but I'll be a Nazir anyways out of, not because I have to based on the neder, the stipulation, but because I'm going to volunteer to be a Nazir. And so either way, he's going to in practice be a Nazir, right? If the child was a ben kayoma, so then he has to be a Nazir to respect his tanai, his stipulation. And if the child was not a ben kayama, well then he's going to volunteer, right? Be a Nazir now voluntarily. And okay, so he's a Nazir for 30 days. Now chazra v'yolda, and if then his wife gives birth to a healthy child, well then harei ze Nazir. So the Tanakama says he's a Nazir, right? Meaning he made a stipulation that when his wife has a son, he's going to be a Nazir. He's going to be a Nazir. And there was unfortunately a miscarriage. Rabbi Yehuda says there's nothing to consider over here. He's not a Nazir. And therefore, if she then gives birth after that to a child, well then, okay, his wife now gave birth to a child. And he's now a Nazir. Whereas Reb Shimon Omer, Reb Shimon says right? In a similar manner. Yomar, you should make the following stipulation: Im Harishin ben Kayama, if the first child was in fact a ben Kayama, Harishin Chovas, and obviously the first Nazirus was a Nazirus Chova, Vizonadova, and now I'm going to voluntarily be a Nazir. V'im lav Harishin Adova Vizo Chova. But if the first child was not a ben Kayama, so then when I was initially a Nazir, it was voluntarily, and now I'm going to be a Nazir obligationally, because my wife now had a child. Okay. Interesting Mishnah. Says the Gemara. Hi, my lemema. Bum padum padum pum. The Mishnah had started off by saying, Harini Nazir l'chsheli ben, v'nodad lo ben, harei ze Nazir. Captain Obvious. Captain Obvious over here. The Tanakama, you know who the Tanakama was? Rabbi Captain Obvious. Rabbi Obvious. Reb Obvious. Reb Obvious says that if a fellow says, that I'm going to be a Nazir when I have a son, and his wife gives birth to a son, Harei Nazir is going to be a Nazir. Thank you, Reb Obvious. So answer the Gemara, Mishum Seifa. Well, because the Mishnah goes weiter and says that, but if his wife gave birth to a Bas, Tumtum Vandroginus, Eino Nazir, then he would not be a Nazir. Pshita, that's also obvious, Reb Obvious, because if he says that he's going to be a Nazir when his wife gives birth to a son and she doesn't give birth to a son, well then obviously he's not going to be a Nazir. Reb Obvious. Yeah, but maybe it's not so obvious, because maybe what he was really saying was, not just when I have a son, when I have a child, I will be a Nazir. And therefore I might have a minute to say that even though he mentioned son, if you were to have a daughter, a tumtum androgynous, right, any child, he should be a Nazir. So therefore the Sefer is saying, no. If his wife gives birth to a son, so he'll be a Nazir, but Bas tumtum androgynous, he would not be a Nazir. And the Gemara had continued that if he says that that when he has an offspring, he will be a Nazir. So then, regardless of the gender of the child, right, Ben, Bas, tumtum androgynous, anybody, if he said just when he has an offspring, he'll be a Nazir, so then he's going to have to be a Nazir Pshita. This is also obvious. Well, maybe I had the half minute to say that when he says a volod, it doesn't mean any volod, it means a boy. A volod michashiv bene inshe, a offspring that will be choshuv among the people, and okay, they want to say it's referring to a son, and so maybe it's really just referring to a son, and if his wife would give birth to a Bas tumtum androgynous, then he would not be a Nazir. Kamash Milan, that no, when it says volod, it means all volods, all children, and if his wife gives birth to a child, he will be a Nazir. Pila ishto enu Nazir. The Mishnah had said that if his wife miscarries, unfortunately, so then he will not be a Nazir. No, right, he's certainly not a Nazir. Man katanila. Who is the Tana who would say that he's certainly not a Nazir? Rabbi Yehuda dechrihu. It's Rabbi Yehuda, who we saw the other day by the piles, who says that there's no Nazir out of Suffolk, and here it's a Suffolk. We're uncertain if this child is a ben Kayama, and therefore, because there's a Suffolk, he would not be a Nazir. Reb Shimon Omer, Reb Shimon had said, Yomar, you should make the following stipulation: Hoya ben Kayama, if the miscarried child was a ben Kayama, well then Harei ni Nazir Chova, then I'm an obligatory Nazir. V'im lav Harei ni Nazir Nedava, and if the child was not a ben Kayama, well then I am voluntarily accepting upon myself Nazirus. Now says the Gemara, Ba'amine Reb Abba Reb Huna. The Reb Abba asked the kasha from Rav Huna. Hareini Nazir l'chsheyeh libein. I will be a Nazir when I will have a son. V'ipila ishto, and his wife unfortunately miscarried. V'hifrish korban. V'chazav v'yalda. And he set aside a korban that was gonna be like a korban for Nazirus. V'yalda, and then his wife on the same day gave birth, like maybe it was twins or something. So the first one was miscarried, and then he set aside an animal to be a korban nazir, and then she gave birth, and he had made the stipulation that when he will have a son, he will be a nazir. His wife had miscarried. He set aside a korban, and then she had a child. Mahu. Okay. Like, what's the status of this? What's the status of this animal? Is it considered hektish or not? According to who are we asking? If we're asking according to Reb Shimon, what's the question? Obviously, it's going to be be hektish. Reb Shimon says that in the case of doubt, in the context of Nazirus, we're stringent, and therefore we weren't sure if this child was a ben kayama or not. We're going to go stringent, and therefore when he set aside this animal to be for his korban nazir, we have to assume that it's hektish. Ve'elo aliba d'Reb Yehuda damer safek Nazirus lahakol. Well then, okay, so what are we saying? So according to Reb Yehuda, who says that safek Nazirus lahakol, that we're lenient when it comes to Safek Nazirus, in which case, if we're not sure if the child is a Ben Kayama, so then he's certainly not a Nazir. So my Kadosh, or Lo Kadosh. So then my Kadosh or Lo Kadosh. So then in that case, what do we say? Do we say that if he had set aside this animal, then it would be, right, as a Korban Nazir, it would be Kadosh, or not? My nafkamina, what's the nafkamina? Like he's also v'lavod bo. Well, if it's Kadosh, then you can't shear its wool and get benefit from it. You can't work it. Take it. We say, we don't know. But ben Rechumi me Abai, ben Rechumi as Abai. Harin Nazir l'chsheyehei li ben. Fellow says he's going to be a Nazir, right? So Reuven says he's going to be a Nazir when he has a son. V'shama chavero, Shimon hears, v'omer v'olai. And he says, mi oichit. So mi oichit what? Adiburi mashma? Is he saying mi oichit that yes, Reuven says that when he has a child he's going to be a nazir. Shimon says mi oichit. Is he saying mi oichit that when you Reuven have a child, I Shimon will oichit be a nazir? Or is he saying mi oichit that Shimon's saying that when he himself has a child he'll be a nazir? And if you're saying that Shimon's talking about himself, mashma. If Reuven says that he's going to be a nazir when he will have a son, and Shimon hears va'omer va'ani, and he says va'ani. Ma'u anafshi kamer, is he talking about himself that when he Shimon has a child, he'll be a nazir. Maybe he's saying that no, my heart is with you, i.e. that when you have a son, that when you have a son, I will be a nazir as well. Imtim Slomer kol be'anpe ksifa le milsa. Perhaps you could say that Shimon would be too embarrassed to talk about it himself, meaning that presumably if Reuven is saying that, when he has a son, he's going to be a Nazir, he's making like a big neder, maybe it's because Reuven is having a difficult time having children, and therefore if Reuven is saying that when Reuven is going to have a son, he'll be a Nazir, Shimon wouldn't say that when Shimon has a son, he'll be a Nazir, because, if Reuven wants a child, Shimon shouldn't be talking about himself. So in that case, we can assume that Shimon is, being happy with Reuven and saying, yes, Reuven, when you have a child, I'll also be a Nazir. So, Amar Areni Nazir l'chshei Ploni ben. What if Reuven had said, I'm going to be a Nazir when Levi has a child, V'shama chaver v'amar v'ani, and Shimon hears that and says, me too, Mahu. Do we say that since Levi is not there, so Shimon could be talking about himself having a child? Or maybe he's saying that he's gonna be a Nazir when Levi has a child. Tibai, we say ich weiß nicht. I think we'll stop here, friends. That was Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta Nazir. We talked about different stipulations. If a fellow says that he'll be a Nazir when his wife has a son, a child, and if there was a miscarriage, so we saw the machlokas between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. The Reb Yehuda says that Safek Nazir does not make a Nazir. Reb Shimon said Safek Nazir does make a Nazir. Friends, hope that was Daf Yigimel, Masech Nedarim. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.